Hello and welcome to the next installment of Hanging with Haig. I'm Haig Colter, and with me today is Jessica O'Brien. Jess, welcome.
Hi, thanks.
How are you feeling today?
Doing good. Doing
So
great.
let's start maybe with what you do for your day job. So where do you work and what do you do there?
Sure. I work for Viasat. Viasat is a global satellite telecommunications company. So basically, an ISP that runs off of satellites. And I am the lead cyber threat intelligence analyst there and also acting SOC manager.
Cool. And how long have you been there?
I've been there for 4 years, and it's been really great. You have a ton of data to analyze advanced persistent threat actors and how they operate, and it's really fascinating.
Cool, cool. Now, we're here to talk about life away from the keyboard. So the stereotype is that people in our space are indoorsy versus outdoorsy, but you have a real love of the outdoors. Tell us a bit about some of your pursuits and what you do outside of work.
Yeah. A lot of my friends that I hang out with outside of work don't really know that I'm this secret nerd that hangs out on a computer all day. I'm actually an avid surfer and rock climber, and have also lived in a truck camper. So,
So let's talk about a little like all of that together. So you spent how long basically being a nomad camping around?
I think it was close to 3 years that my husband and I were living on the road.
That's amazing. And in those 3 years, where did you travel to?
Gosh, we traveled everywhere. We've gone down to almost the tip of Baja, lots of time in Baja, and then up into Oregon, all of California, Utah, Nevada, Wyoming, Montana, Colorado, um, Arizona, lots of places.
All right. So heavily west of the Mississippi, but basically in the mountains for the climbing and near the water for the surfing.
Exactly. Yep.
Now, some of that time spent being a nomad was during COVID. How is it easier or more difficult sort of being able to sort of stop anywhere and spend the night where your life is in your camper and you're moving around? Is it easier or is it more difficult?
Yeah, it's a good question, Heig. It's in some ways it is more difficult. Our Viasat's headquarters is in Carlsbad, San Diego, and so I'd spend quite a bit of time in San Diego, living out of the Reagan. And when COVID happened, everything shut down in the cities. So access to things that you need when you live in a camper, things like showers and things like that, are much harder to get to. And that made it quite hard. And we'd spend some time working out of coffee shops and things like that. And when everything shut down, city life in a camper became much harder. And then, so we moved out to staying in national parks and things like that. And then, as everyone knows, those started shutting down as well. They were trying to just keep everyone in their house. So it became quite difficult living on the road in a camper during COVID.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And then was was that part of a reason for why you migrated away from living in a camper and then actually settling down into a house?
Yeah, so we were traveling around Wyoming and Colorado and um, up in the Rockies, and just kind of all the parks were closed, and we were just like, gosh, this is not, it's not as easy to roam free as it used to be. And we were staying on a friend's piece of land up in the Rockies, and a property came available next to theirs, and we're like, maybe we could, if we were to live in a house, it would be somewhere like this. And we live 3 miles up a Forest Service dirt road in the middle of nowhere with nothing around us but other people living off the grid or close to off the grid. So it made sense. If we were going to move into a house, a place like this would be ideal.
All right. And then when did you move in?
We got this house in December.
Okay, so congratulations. So after 3 years of basically having your entire life fit into a camper, how is life different now that you have what must seem like so much more space to work with? Yeah.
Yeah, it's very different. We didn't really have any furniture, right? We didn't really have anything. And luckily friends and family were downsizing. So we were able to fill the house pretty quickly that way, but it's a lot of space. We spend most of our time in the living room and the kitchen. We're like, okay, this is all the space we really need. And we still go out and with our camper and spend a lot of time outside. So yeah, it's
so now you have basically the best of both worlds. You have a home base, but you still have the camper and the ability to do those adventures. Now, we spoke a little bit before this. You don't just have a house, you also have some animals, right?
Yeah, we do. We thought, okay, we have a house now. What are some animals that we've always wanted? And we both always wanted chickens. So we have free range chickens now, which has been very interesting experience. They're low maintenance, but there's a lot to learn. You get fresh eggs in the morning. And then we also have bees. So we, one of our neighbors, his colony, part of his colony swarmed, and we captured the swarm, and now they're at our house in a hive, and that's been a really neat experience as well. And we also have a few cats now, a few rescues.
Nice. And then are you harvesting some of that honey as well? So you have honey from the bees, eggs from the chickens?
Yeah. So this spring, we're hoping to harvest the honey. And we have another neighbor up here who makes a living off of honey, and I helped him harvest honey this last spring, and it's a really, really neat process. So we're excited to do that.
So do you have the whole white suit and the little smoky thing and all of that?
We've got the whole attire. I'm
Very
super
cool.
allergic to bees too, so it'll be fun.
Oh, well, interesting and exciting. I can imagine that when you were being a nomad for 3 years, living in the vehicle that you're traveling and doing all your things, you have a real awareness of like consumption, be it fuel consumption, electric consumption when you're parked. What was that like, and like how has it translated into sort of leaving sort of the nomadic life and having like a foot in each now? Has any of that carried over into the home life?
Yeah, that's a good question, Haig. So to give people kind of like a vision of what it was like living in a truck camper, our truck camper it's called a 4-wheel pop-up truck camper, and it has we have 380 watts of solar on the top, and then it can house 40 gallons of water, and it has a wastewater container as well. And then we have some propane as well that can heat water. And when you have 40 gallons, sounds like a lot. It's not. It's very little. And so every time you turn on the faucet to wash your hands, or even we have ability to take a shower, it's really quick and brief. And you're really conservative with your heat, with the propane, and even your power source. And so naturally, when we moved into a house, we found ourselves just, turn on the water a quarter of the way for washing things, and, use it as little as possible. And you're just much more water and energy conscious. And I think that's, really important with everything going on with the environment these days. So it's not that hard to do. It's to maintain that. It's been pretty neat.
Yeah, and it's interesting how it translates to being in a house, even though it's seemingly limitless. At least having the mindset of not being wasteful certainly is good. We've spoke about solar, and I have solar on the roof of my house. And while I'm still connected to the grid, I do like to try to play that game of generating more than I'm consuming, especially in the summer when the days are long, and then having basically enough of stored electricity or a negative usage bill that when the winter comes along, I'm slowly creeping back up to zero and then paying an electric bill maybe in January and February. And it is interesting because you see how energy efficient or inefficient some of the things that you use are. Like an incandescent bulb is like significantly more energy wasteful than an LED when it's producing the same amount of light. So it is interesting how it kind of translates.
Yeah, absolutely. What's great is that in today's world, there are, at least in the US, there's a lot of incentives for going solar and things like that. So it's a nice time to get into investing in solar and things like that, for sure. And then also we have our own well where we get our water from and our own septic. So that also helps kind of us think about, how much water are we taking and what are we putting down the drain? It's going into our soil. So that's been an interesting experience as well.
Yeah. So mindfulness at home and mindfulness on the road. So I take it then when you're camping and traveling in the RV, the minimally impactful philosophy continues.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the best thing to think about when you're on the road, traveling in nature is leave no trace. There's like a whole thing you can look up on leave no trace camping. And it's really all about just leaving the place the way you saw it, taking all of your waste with you or throwing it away in a place it won't end up in nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you said earlier on that you work for a company that uses satellites basically for internet connectivity. Does that mean when you are living a nomadic life, you have your own satellite dish and have the ability to have internet anywhere?
Yeah, so a lot of people ask me that. They're like, how are you doing it? How are you working on the road in the middle of nowhere? And part of it absolutely is I help with testing for Viasat. And so I have a satellite dish that I can take with me different places. And that absolutely helps. But also there is Wi-Fi available in many locations and people can do this even without that access. So for example, up in the Grand Teton National Park, there was a public location that had Wi-Fi. And I noticed that it was broadcasting quite far. They had a very nice router. And so I was able to sit outside and just be like sitting in the forest next to this building, but really in the forest working. And like I'd be in a call like this and a fox would walk by or something. And it'd just be so neat. So you can find those opportunities. They're not obvious, but they are out there.
Right. And then did you have a Wi-Fi extender that you would use sometimes to sort of amplify a weaker signal?
Yes. Yeah. So my husband is an electrician and my best friend, she's a systems engineer and has a lot of experience with various things. So the three of us together would come up with crafty ways of like extending the Wi-Fi network so we could get further into nature. And you guys are probably all familiar with Wi-Fi extenders that are out there. So we plug that into the camper and use that as part of our infrastructure for getting deeper into the woods and away from the people.
So that actually takes me back to a question then. So in the 3 years that you were living that nomadic life, what percentage of the time was it 2 of you in the RV versus 3?
I mean, most of the time it was my husband and I, but our friend Dana, she went on like I want to say it was a 3 or 4 month road trip with us. And we have an extra bed in the camper, but she also had a tent and she'd set that up. And
Yeah, but you
but yeah,
still
there was
had the
3 of
40
us
gallons of water to work with and
with
the
3
the
people.
the same amount of solar. So it must
Yeah,
have been a real exercise in conservation, splitting it 2 ways to 3 ways.
absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Cool. So you've been traveling up into the mountains for climbing, down the coast, all the way down the Baja Peninsula for surfing. Living an exciting and adventurous life out of doors may also mean a couple of injuries here and there. Has either climbing or surfing ever sent you to the
Oh,
ER?
yeah, definitely. I had a surfing accident where I was doing a little cutback on my shortboard and T-boned my board after falling off, and I herniated 2 discs in my neck and was in a neck brace for a while. And then I herniated another disc, probably rock climbing, and I've torn labrum and 2 rotator cuffs climbing. Definitely had my fair share of injuries.
But I'm sure it was worth it because you were living the dream out, experiencing nature and
Yeah,
just the
definitely.
great outdoors. Excellent.
Yeah.
So we know what you do as your day job. We know that you have this real passion for the outdoors, but you also have another passion with an organization called the Global Emancipation Network. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, generally speaking, I have a passion for human trafficking, stopping human trafficking. And it's something that isn't really talked about much, but is extremely prevalent throughout the entire world. And I think people, when they hear human trafficking, they think, oh, that might just be something in developing countries or something like that. But some of the richest cities in America are deeply entrenched in human trafficking, sadly. And so it's something that through my previous career, I've seen a lot of dark things related to that, and have had a strong passion to help with that. And I've worked with a few different groups to offer my skill sets in cyber to track the bad guys down and help stop these large networks. And there is a group called the Global Emancipation Network, and it's a great place for people with cyber skill sets from OSINT. Cyber threat intelligence skills specifically are very helpful, but data scientists and many other specialties can contribute to their effort to stop human trafficking. And basically, they're just trying to create a place where data can be collected and shared, because a lot of siloing happens with that data, and not necessarily on purpose. But each organization is working their mission and tracking a group, and may not think to share or collaborate with everyone else that's trying to stop these efforts. So yeah, the Global Emancipation is a great thing to plug into. I think, Haig, you have their website available.
Yeah, we've put it at the bottom of the screen here. So you can certainly help financially, but then also, like you said, Jess, if you've got the skills, they're basically fractionalizing a lot of the data that they have, and you take a small chunk and you work with it, and bring it back, and then the many hands make light of the work of churning through all that data.
Yeah, definitely. I think the best thing to do is just reach out to them and share your resume, or just share what your skill sets are, and they will find a way to plug you in and get you involved with what they've done.
Well, that's great that you're so passionate about such an important and worthy cause. One thing that we love to do here when we do interviews is finish with a fun fact, something that most people probably don't know about you. Now, you said in your life outside of work, most people don't know that you do the whole cyber gig. But how about something that maybe the people at work and the people outside of work maybe don't know right away about you?
So before I started with Viasat, I worked for the government for 13 years, and I was working for various agencies within the intelligence community, the FBI, the DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, and NCIS, the Naval Criminal Investigative Service. Everyone knows that one from the TV show, but there is actually an NCIS. So, yeah.
All right. And you hardly seem like the stereotype of what an NCIS agent would be like, certainly based on the TV shows.
Yeah, I focused on cyber threat intelligence and worked those operations, cyber operations, and it was a really interesting world to work in. There's a lot of darkness out there, sadly, but there's a lot of people that are willing to fight the good fight against it. So it was a really neat thing to be involved in.
Cool. And it sounds like with the Global Emancipation Network, that passion to sort of shine light on darkness still exists.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, Jess, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for hanging with us. And everybody, until next time, thanks for hanging. We'll see you.
Thanks.